All right, today we are cracking open a book with a really fascinating, and let's be honest, pretty provocative idea at its core, the human fingerprints on God. In this explainer, we're going to break down its central argument, which isn't about proving or disproving God's existence. Nope, it's about asking a completely different question.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll see how the book reframes the whole debate. Then, we'll go searching for what it calls those human fingerprints. We're also going to unpack a key idea called consilience. It's the engine of the whole argument. We'll get super clear on what is not being claimed, and then explore what all this means for our own sense of agency. And we'll wrap it all up with a really powerful metaphor that I think you'll find sticks with you.
Okay, so right from the get-go, this book does something really clever. It just completely sidesteps that old, often dead-end argument about whether or not God exists. Instead, it poses a different kind of question, one that's way more analytical.
And this, right here, is the key that unlocks the entire book. It's a total pivot. The focus shifts from theology to something more like, well, forensics. The question isn't about what's out there, beyond us. It's about the stories we tell right here, and who or what those stories seem to reflect.
So if we're on the hunt for human fingerprints, what are we actually looking for? I mean, what do these marks even look like? Let's dig into what the book identifies as the key signatures left behind in our sacred stories.
Now, the book argues that these aren't just random quirks or coincidences. No, these are predictable patterns that show up again and again. You know, like when moral commands just happen to align perfectly with a society's survival needs. Or that classic pattern where authority starts with a person's voice, then gets locked into a text, and is finally controlled by a powerful institution. These are things we see happen with human-made systems all the time.
And when you put all of those patterns together, you're left with this really direct, really clear conclusion. The argument is that the simplest explanation isn't some grand conspiracy or a failure of faith. It's just that these systems look, feel, and act human, because they are. So how in the world does the author build such a huge case? I mean, that's a massive claim. Well, it doesn't rely on a single gotcha moment or one killer proof. Instead, the whole thing is built on this really powerful intellectual tool, a concept called consilience.
Consilience is such a cool concept. The word itself means to jump together. Think about it like a detective story. You have 5 different witnesses, right? They've never met, they come from totally different walks of life, but they all describe the same suspect. When their independent stories converge like that, you know you're onto something solid. That's the bedrock of this book's argument.
And here are those independent witnesses. It doesn't matter if you're looking through the lens of anthropology at how myths are formed, or psychology at how we cope with mortality, or sociology at how groups maintain power. The book's point is that each field, on its own, uncovers the exact same human fingerprints. It's that convergence that gives the argument its weight.
You see, and this is so important, this approach isn't an attack. It isn't about mocking belief. It's something much quieter, more patient. It's about laying out the evidence from all these different angles and just showing how it all lines up to tell one coherent story.
Now, to really get what's being argued here, it's just as crucial to understand what is not being said. The author is very, very careful to draw some clear lines in the sand so that the point isn't misunderstood. And this distinction is everything. The book is laser-focused on one thing, the origin. Where did these stories and systems come from? It is not, and I really want to stress this, it is not questioning the sincerity of a person's faith, and it's not saying religion has no value. It's carefully separating the source of an idea from the meaning people find in it.
Here's another way to think about it. That deep human need for meaning, for connection, for some way to face our own mortality. That is absolutely real. The book doesn't deny that for a second. It simply offers an explanation for the architecture built around that longing, the system that organizes it and passes it on.
So why does all this matter? I mean, if it's not about attacking the value of religion, what's the point? Well, this is where the intellectual argument hooks into the real world, and we see some profound consequences.
Check out this pattern the book highlights. It's a common trajectory we see over and over. You start with a big moment of divine revelation, a voice, a prophecy. But then, it's followed by a long silence. The original voice fades. And what rushes in to fill that vacuum? Human interpretation, endless debates, and then, bam! Rigid institutions that claim they're the only ones who can tell you what the silence really means. The book argues this looks exactly like the evolution of any other human organization.
This is such a powerful reframing. That lack of ongoing, clear divine instruction isn't seen as a problem for the human origin theory. Instead, it's presented as a key piece of data. The silence itself and how we humans have responded to it becomes evidence supporting the whole idea.
And it all leads to this huge takeaway. If we accept that these systems are human-made, then we can no longer outsource our moral responsibility to a divine text or some institution. The job of figuring out our values, of creating meaning, of fixing our mistakes, it all comes right back to us.
And this lays out the two worldviews so clearly, doesn't it? On one side, a world of obedience, where the highest virtue is following unquestionable rules, and doubt is seen as a threat. But on the other, you have a world of agency, where moral work is this continuous, ongoing human project, where we take responsibility for making meaning, and find a certain dignity in just trying to see the world clearly.
Okay, to bring all of this home, the book concludes with a single, memorable metaphor that just perfectly captures the entire argument. It's the idea of religion as a mirror, not a window.
Just let that one sink in for a moment. For centuries, we might have thought we were looking through a window at something transcendent and divine. The book suggests that maybe we've been looking into a mirror all along.
So what do we see in that reflection? We see us, our deepest, most human stuff, our profound fear of death, our desperate hopes for justice, our social need for rules and order, that powerful longing to be part of a tribe, and even our incredible, innate capacity for awe. It's all of our own psychology, just projected outward, magnified, and given a sacred name.
And that's where the book leaves us, with this final, provocative question. It doesn't give us the answer. It suggests that once we realize we might be looking at a reflection of ourselves, the responsibility for what we see and what we do about it is entirely our own. It puts the power and the work right back in our hands.